I'm Karl Bailey. I'm with the Seagoville Animal Shelter, and we're going to do the little shelter that could and did. A little bit of history about how this all started. Prior to January 10th of 2011, the animal shelter was run by our code enforcement and building inspector. And they had one animal control officer, a part-time shelter attendant, and they were euthanizing up to 70 animals a month. In April 2010, the chief came to me and he said, "Hey, we want to bring this under the police department." And I told him, "No, you really don't." Because animal services is one of those things that you can't make anybody happy, whether it's the citizens, the animal welfare groups, the city council. Somebody's always complaining about it. So our last chief prior to this chief coming in had kicked it down to code enforcement after it had been under the police department for a few years. And then he tells me, "I want you to run it." And I said, "Why?" And he says, "Well, you're the animal lover." And I said, "Well, how does that qualify me to be, a shelter, run an animal shelter, just because I get haircuts, I'm really not a barber." But, and what I told him is for me to do this, because I'd never been involved in the animal welfare community at all prior to this, but I knew that putting down 70 animals a month wasn't going to work for me. I wouldn't be able to keep my sanity. So we told him we've got to try this as no kill, and we also need to build a new shelter because our building's about 40 years old, and it's a metal building with cement blocks and just about to fall down around us. So I did a lot of research. Google became my best friend in all this. I did hours and hours of research trying to figure out how to run a shelter, and stuff about the no-kill movement, which I had no idea about any of it. Contacted local humane organizations. We have an SPCA of Texas, Humane Society of North Texas. Looked into rescues, grants, shelter management software. We were still on pen and paper when we started down there. And in 2010, December, I was informed that we'd take over on January 10th. So we walked in that first day. Fortunately, they did assign Officer Stevens with me, and she had had prior shelter management experience, and she's a police officer now. But because of that, I needed somebody that knew what they were doing because I had no idea still. And they sent me to animal control school. This was our first day. This is our volunteers that we had, and Brenda's in the white shirt. And I'm the big goon in the middle with the badge on. But our first day, we shut down the gas chamber right then and there and turned it into food storage just because it was airtight and watertight and we didn't have a lot of room for anything else. But that thing was horrible. It didn't have a release valve. They told me that they had to throw the lid open and run out the back gate to avoid getting overcome by the gas. It was horrible. So not just for the animals, but for the employees too. So we're like, no, we're not going to do that. So we took inventory and made a needs list and found out really quick that we needed a lot of things and didn't have much to inventory. We got it organized, rearranged, and began work on new procedures because going from killing 70 animals to trying not to kill any of them or as few as possible, we had to write the book all over again with an operating budget of just about $28,000, so we didn't have a lot of money to work with. And the steps to becoming a no-kill shelter, first of all, you got to have your city administrations on board or your county administrations, wherever you're at. I'm sure if you've been up against the counties, they're skeptical about letting animal welfare into the situation because it's always been an adversarial relationship. But explain to them what no-kill means, because most of them don't know. I mean, I didn't know, and they surely didn't know. And introduce them to the movement and make sure that they know what to expect, because there's a lot of things that we didn't even know what to expect. We knew it was going to take off, we just didn't know how fast and how big it was going to get. And it's got to be a one-way street. if you decide to go back on this, you're going to see this. And this is, you know, I told them, I said, if y'all decide that we don't want to be no-kill anymore, I have to step out of this, and these people are going to burn City Hall down. So just be prepared. And they were agreeable to it. They said, if you can get it done, do it. So Brenda and I set about our task. Had to get the staff on board, of course. At that point, it was Brenda and I and one part-time shelter attendant. And that was pretty easy for us, but in most situations where you have several employees that have been working under one system, you're going to have to make them evolve to a system where they're going to be overloaded a lot. There's going to be more animals in the shelter. It's going to be, you're going to have to start working with rescues, fosters, volunteers. And it's going to be a huge strain on resources when you've got a $28,000 budget and you have animals that are staying in there for a month or more at a time. You're going through more food, more medicine, more supplies, cleaning supplies and stuff. So, and the importance of the new procedures that you have in place. Sanitation's a big thing. Having that many animals in a shelter, more animals are likely to get sick if you don't stay on top of your cleaning regimens and your sanitation. So find your local rescues, your breed specifics, non-breed specific, the mutt rescues, special needs rescues if there's some out there that you can use, the humane organizations like the SPCAs and stuff. Get on social networking. Everybody here, when I started this, not many people were using Facebook. But over the last 4 or 5 years, several people have gone to Facebook, and now we're on Twitter, actually, which I don't know anything about still. I didn't even have a Facebook page when we started all this. I had a dispatcher create me one because I didn't know how to do it. I was in protest. I wasn't going to get a Facebook page, and then they said, you've got to get a Facebook page. So our donation account at the city was revolving, and it went with the budget. Every September 30th is the end of the budget year. October 1st starts a new budget. Well, any donations that came in prior to September 30th, on October 1st, that got thrown into the general fund, which means all those people that donated for animals and the animal shelter got thrown towards things like street department, water department, potholes, and whatever, you know, needed to be done. So make sure, we had to change all that and get them to understand that this has to be revolving. I don't want somebody to write a $500 check and then they find out that it went to patch a street. Publish that needs list on your website and local medias and stuff like that. Who's not doing this already? I mean, most of this is pretty much common sense nowadays, but create an Amazon.com wish list. Has everybody got one of these yet? Start one of those for your rescue, because you can put it on, people will mail it to you. They don't even have to be local. And local businesses, our Walmart gives us all our food, just the broken bags that get torn up as they're stocking it. And Veterinarians and Vendors. We found a veterinarian that was just starting his practice. He needed the money coming in and the advertisement, and he does our spays and neuters for $60 for a dog, no matter what size it is. But he's limited as to how many he can take. And we also have a spay-neuter clinic that's in town, or in the little town next to us. So that helps us get some low-cost spay-neuters and stuff done. Pharmaceuticals, I lucked out. We didn't have a pharmaceutical, or I didn't know who it was, so I had to contact one, and we contacted Butler Shine, which is now Henry Shine. And I ran into a salesperson there that was in animal welfare, so she's like, oh yeah, great. So she gets me all these discounted prices for everything, and that's a big help. So we can buy stuff that we need at a great discount. Software. Has everybody got a software program? Anybody working in an animal shelter here, or is it just, okay. A lot of rescue people and a few shelter people. Our software is Pet Point, and it's free to use, so it's a good program, comprehensive, got us off of pen and paper. And it allows us to track all our ins and outs. So microchips, we buy them for about $6 a piece. And the people that adopt, if they get a microchip when they adopt, then they get 30 days of free pet insurance through this program. So, and pet points free if you're not already using it. So, and volunteers. Anybody volunteer directly for a shelter or just, okay. Cities are notorious for not letting outsiders in, and they're scared of the public, but you have to have your volunteers. If it wasn't for our volunteers, none of this would be possible, and we wouldn't have been successful 4 years in a row. But you have to get the city over that hump that, well, they're a liability, or they can't work on their own, because they can. Get them to organize a 501c3. If you haven't already done that, get that done, because it's an 8-month process, but it allows more money to come in. I don't want people donating to my account because it's too hard for me to use it. I got to go through bid process and all kinds of red tape and purchase orders and stuff, when our volunteers can take the money in, give somebody a tax ID number so that they can write it off on their taxes, and they can spend the money however they want based on our needs at the shelter. So that works great with us. Get your small group of volunteers, and word of mouth is how we grew from 4 volunteers to over 60 within about 6 months. So it was just like-minded individuals. Hey, come on down. I'm working at the shelter. You come on down. Then they tell 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends, and all of a sudden it's a Suave commercial. And use your volunteers. Everybody comes to the table with something that they can do or something that they want to do. And not everybody is a dog walker. Not everybody can go to off-site adoption events, but some people are good with a camera, or some people are good that just want to come in and clean. We have a lady that doesn't want to deal with the public. She just wants to come in and clean and feed and wash the bowls and stuff on the weekends, and that's fine too. Have them host adoption events at the shelter, away from the shelter. Our city insurance, we found out, covers volunteer just like it would cover a police officer or anybody else that works for the city, no matter where you're at. So it doesn't stop at the city limits. And they can host fundraisers and recruit other volunteers, so that's your best thing. This is one of our off-site events that we did, and that's how many volunteers we had show up for that one. Fosters are a great asset. You've got to have fosters in a shelter program. We didn't know what we were doing. And we here, fill this out, take the dog, and stay in touch. Yeah, well, since we lost track of a couple dogs, we was like, oh, okay, now we're figuring things out as we go along here. So get background checks, which, since we're under the police department, background checks are, pretty easy to do. And have one of your volunteers go to the home to find out, because we had this happen. We had a lady say, yeah, I can foster that female dog while she's nursing her puppies. She just had a litter. And she had a male dog at home. And nobody bothered to ask if the male dog was neutered. Well, before she came back and after the dogs were weaned, she got pregnant again. So we're like, bring us the dog and the puppies back. We'll find somebody that can do this. So make sure that they don't have unaltered dogs at home. And make sure they have the right situation. Make sure that they have a fence so the dog's not breaking out all the time, or some way to take care of the animal, and that they're not a hoarder, because some people will say, yeah, I can take care of them, and they've got 30 other dogs at the house. So you want to make sure that you do some home visits and see what the situation you're sending an animal out of the shelter and into a home. And explain the philosophy. Make sure that they're able to get those dogs to your adoption events if they're going to take them home. That if they don't get any exposure, it's going to be a lifelong foster, and they need to get out. And of course, we have foster failures. Anybody here have a foster failure? Yeah, just a few. Yeah, that's fine and dandy. However, those that aren't going to be failures need to make it to all the events so that they can get some exposure to potential adopters and keep track of them. you have to have the adoption events every weekend. We have to have 2 a weekend, especially during the summer, right through puppy and kitten season, or we just back up. We've got 11 kennels and a handful of stainless steel cages, and we run about 800 animals through the shelter a year. So if we don't have these adoption events, it just backs up. And we don't have enough liquid plumber to get that moved. So you've got to host them at different locations. Don't always hit the same, because you'll pump a well dry quick. You know, you keep going to the same Petco every week, and people stop showing up. So give them a little opportunity to go elsewhere, meet new audiences. We use Walgreens and Petco and PetSmart and Tractor Supply and Chevron gas station, and there's a Valvoline place that they'll do car washes and give us the money, and we do the adoption events there. Keep it open on the weekends if you have somebody there that can keep it open. Our volunteers keep it open on the weekends. We don't have staff that stays past noon on the weekends, and they'll stay till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon just doing adoptions.
Are you open Saturday and Sunday?
Absolutely. Every day. We have a group. We have the Saturday crew and the Sunday crew. They don't really get along with each other. That's why they're better. It's one coming in Saturday and one going in Sunday. So they all have different philosophies, so we get the like-minded people here and the like-minded people there. But you're going to run into that anytime you have volunteers. So everybody's got a way they want to do it, and they're not always on the same page. But as long as the outcome is the same, you're still accomplishing the mission. So, like I said, these are some of the places that we go normally. But think of some non-traditional places, like grocery stores and dog-friendly stores and dog parks and stuff like that. These are some of the places that we've used. There's a ton of other ones. We did the Easter parade in Oak Lawn in Dallas that was really successful for us. A lot of rescues show up to that. Advertise, we don't really have a local newspaper anymore. It went broke. But we get it out as anywhere we can. Put flyers out on vehicles. If you know you're going to be at Brookshire's or something next week, start putting some flyers out throughout the week, and maybe somebody will show up. Social media, of course, everything goes on our Facebook page and our Twitter feed, and Craigslist. And I know everybody says, ugh, Craigslist, but we've kind of done an unofficial survey, and probably 80 to 85% of our adoptions come from notifying people through Craigslist of where our adoption events are going to be. And that's how we've had people come from far off places, Longview, Abilene, places like that, because we posted on Craigslist, and they just happen to hit. They get up in the morning and start looking for dogs and cats, and they say, well, hey, they're having a special, that they're going to be here. So that really worked out well for us. So we don't advertise individual animals on Craigslist. You know, we're not trying to do anything like that. Go ahead.
So do you find that the demographic of folks who find your adoption events through Craigslist are mostly the folks to whom you will not?
The what?
Do they mostly, the people that find you through Craigslist, are they folks that you ultimately prove as adopters?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
It's an okay demographic?
Yeah, it's not really, you know. Of course, we as an animal shelter, we don't have the staff or the resources to do home checks like a rescue would, or to, you know, chase them around and find out how it's going to be. But we interview them. We ask them about their home situation, what they're, you know, if they've got pets at home, what's going to be a good match. Are they active people? Or are they couch potatoes? Trying to match the right animal for the right person.
Yeah.
We can't be 100% sure, but probably 90 to 95% of the animals that we send out to adoption are getting really good homes. And you know, that's probably about as good as you can ask for, even if you did a home visit. So don't be afraid of Craigslist. I know everybody, well, they're looking for bait dogs, or they're looking for this or that, but it really has worked out for us, and we haven't had hardly anything come back to us from that. So I mean, we've had a few adopters who will say, well, I just took on more than I could chew, you know. And you try to tell them, hey, this dog, high energy, if you're going to sit around, this isn't the dog for you. And they say, oh, yeah, sure. And then they come back, this dog is destroying my house. I say, well, yeah. So, yeah, use your social medias. And Twitter, if you're using PetPoint software, it automatically feeds your available animals as soon as they become available, and then it repeats them every 3 days until they're adopted. So, because I don't know how to run Twitter, I had to create a Twitter account once again, and
You said that's
automatically goes through. Yeah, it's under your shelter utilities if you're using PetPoint. Do you have a question back there? Okay. And then now the problem is getting followers, and when you're not a Twitter person, you just kind of got to go out there and friend some people, and hopefully they friend you back. So these are the things that we put on Facebook. Facebook is really how this really got off the ground. Photos and videos. We have volunteers that will come out and take cell phone videos of them walking the dogs and interacting with them, and that's really helped. Especially some of your slow movers that have been there for a month or two. Start showing them how really great this dog is, even though it doesn't look adorable. You know, some of those videos kind of get somebody's gears rolling. So you're pleased for donations. Every time we have an injured animal come in or sick animal, we post a picture, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But advertise adoption events, happy tales. Take pictures of the people as they're adopting the dog, you know, as they're like, congratulations, you just had this dog. Urgent needs animals, update your shelter population, say, hey, we're really full, we're having a special, it's $5 adoptions this week at the shelter, come on down, get yourself a forever friend. And the new forever families. And then have them send you photos from the homes, because that really says a lot about how that animal is doing. And the volunteers love that. They like to see that this animal that they've put the time and the effort into, that it, especially the hard cases, that animal is really doing well in its new home and its environment. And that does a lot of things for your morale too at the shelter. So see if they'll do that. And we have that all the time. We actually, a couple months ago, we had send your updated picture in, and we probably had 80 or 90 people send pictures there of the dog at home. So that really worked. It just kept going and going. It went on for a week. We thought it was going to be a one-day deal, but you know. What it does for us, we're almost 8,000 likes. I haven't looked at it today, but so it's spreading the word out there. It gets us connected with everybody. Recruits new volunteers. Also, if you're not using it, volunteermatch.org. Anybody heard of that? Use that. It brings in more donations and people with talents, and it's free. And that's the best thing you can do when you're in sheltering is free.
Did you say volunteermatch.org?
Yeah, that's. Celebrate your successes, no matter how big or how small they are. If somebody donates $10 worth of, rope leashes, say, thanks for that generous donation of your $10 worth of rope leashes, whatever it is. That way, that encourages more people to donate. If you get 12 out of the shelter in a single weekend, woohoo, 12 in a weekend. That doesn't happen ever. But your adoptions and rescues, when a rescue pulls, thank you for pulling this animal out there. Put it out there that people are working. So, and if someone was interested in that animal, and we found that a lot, well, I wanted to adopt that animal from the shelter. Well, it got transferred to the rescue. Go talk to the rescue. And that sets them up for a potential adopter also. So your donations, like I said, your statistics. Every month, in the beginning of the month, I'll post the previous month's statistics, and then at the end of the year, we'll post our statistics for the year.
Where do you post them?
Right there on the Facebook page. And I just create a little PowerPoint slide and put intakes and outcomes and how many calls we went on. And that goes towards being transparent. You have to be transparent or nobody's going to trust you or believe you. So if you euthanize an animal, tell people we had to euthanize an animal. It was either terminal or sick, or we had a court order to do it. There was just only so much we could do to save the animal. And don't be afraid to post that, because that gives you credibility out here amongst the animal welfare. If you're not afraid to post that, some people try to skew those numbers and hide that. Well, we don't want to tell them how many animals we're killing. But if you're not killing that many animals, then they understand that there's going to be a point where you have to euthanize some animals. That's just a cold hard fact in government shelters, is that there are animals that you're just not going to be able to save. Even if you have a court-ordered destruction of an animal, that's something that nobody in the city can do anything about that once it's ordered. So, and then you'll have your animals that they come in terminal cancers or something like that. They get dumped out because the owner doesn't want to take them to the vet and get that taken care of. So don't be afraid to be transparent, because that gives you a lot of street credibility with the animal welfare community and with your public and your community at large, just because they know you're not trying to hide anything. Don't try to skew the numbers. I mean, any number that we post, we can pull right off of our pet point system and show you exactly what's going on. So raise money. A picture's worth $1,000. I can tell you that. Tell the story how you came to have the animal, and we'll get into that here in just a second. Put a donation, like we have a little paw that says donate now. Click on that, it takes you to the PayPal page for our volunteer group.
And that donate link, that goes to your 501c3?
Yes.
And then what did you have to do special to create your 501c3 versus just going into the general fund? Is there something special?
No, well, the volunteers had to organize yeah, it's all done by the volunteers.
The city was okay that you guys had the 501c3 link on your shelter city website?
Oh yeah, they used to nitpick me to death. Well, you need to let us know when you're going to be running a special on adoptions, or you need to let us know when something like big happens, because they're getting phone calls and stuff. They don't talk to me anymore. Maybe it was my attitude when they asked, so I don't, I'm like, look, if you want me to call you Friday at midnight and tell you the shelter is full, we're having a special this weekend, dollar dogs, whatever, I'll do it. But you really don't want to get into that. So after they begin, it was hard for them to trust me, much less the volunteers at first, because first of all, I knew not what I was doing and getting into, and it scared them. It scared me. I was scared to death. And then the city's worried about liabilities, because all cities worry about liabilities. But when it gets right down to it, there really isn't much liability out there when it involves the animal shelter. Everybody loves an animal shelter. Who's going to complain? So see if your veterinarian. This is another thing that we did in the very beginning, especially before we had that 501 set up, is see if your veterinarian will allow donors to contact him, give them a credit card number, and let them put it on his books. So they, because some people have a hard time. Well, I don't know if I give you this money, are you going to use it for that? Well, if you give it to the vet, how else is he going to use it? They can set up little deals in their books to say, well, this is how much money Seagoville has, and we're going to use this towards vetting a Seagoville animal when it comes in sick. So, and they were pretty agreeable to that. And then post the photos of the recovery. Everybody wants to see how it's going. And the before and after photos right next to each other help a lot. But this is Penny. Penny was thrown from a moving vehicle in front of a school bus unloading children. So I picked her up. This is the day I picked her up. And she couldn't put any weight on this back left leg. But she didn't complain. She wasn't screaming in pain every time I picked her up. I could touch it, I could feel around. I knew something was wrong with it, I just couldn't tell. It ended up being a twist fracture, broken in 3 places with some debris in there. So, got her to the vet, and by the way, this is the picture we posted that brought in $2,400 in 24 hours. A picture is worth $1,000. You show them that, and they're like, oh my God, you guys went, oh my God. Yes. So they took her in, got her into surgery. Never showed any aggression, never complained, never whined, never did anything. She just laid there and kind of took it. And this is her after surgery photo, after they had to amputate the leg because there just wasn't any fixing that twist fracture. And we work with our local high school has a FFA ag program, small animal program, and there's a curriculum actually through the state and the FFA that only 3 or 4 high schools in the entire state of Texas are taking advantage of now, but this is something that you might talk to your school district. What's that? Did
you say there was a grant?
No, there's a curriculum through the, the FFA, right? Future Farmers, is that right, Ags? So where the curriculum's already there, all you have to do is put it into place, get the teachers on board, get the district on board, and we're through the Dallas Independent School District, so we talked to them, and they actually foster some of our animals that are recovering from spays and neuters and stuff like that. Well, Penny went to that program, and the high school kids, they get to interact with the animals, get to give them vaccinations, learn stuff. If they spend 4 years in that program, then they get to get a veterinary's assistant program, which can work into their college credit towards a veterinary technician program. So it's really beneficial for the kids, and it's beneficial for us. So they had the program, they just weren't involved with the shelter. But like I said, the FFA has the curriculum to give to the school districts. It's just getting them to jump on board with it. A lot of them will have the livestock portion of it, but they won't do the small animal. Well, the small animal is dogs, cats, chickens, rabbits, goats, little things like that, so pigs. What's that? The program that's implemented in the school? Through the FFA programs, through the ag program. So this was our adoption flyer for Penny. And of course, you know, dogs don't know that they don't have 4 legs, so. But anyway, that really ended up being a good deal. Penny ended up becoming the ag program's mascot. She stays at the high school with the teacher, and they during the summer she takes her home, but that's kind of their deal. We said, well, we know she's got a good home at the high school, so we'll take her off the adoption list, and then so the kids get to take care of her and interact with her, and that's really worked out well. She's kind of the ambassador for the program, really, because she gets along with everybody, dogs, cats, birds, you name it. So, but partner with your high schools. Like I said, we have that veterinary assistance program, veterinary science, I think it's called. Plus the high school kids need their community service points. Get them to come out and do a car wash for you, you know, to raise some money. Trap, neuter, and return, everybody doing this? Kinda. We're kind of doing a TNR-ish program. Because it's more of a nuisance abatement, if we release those cats back into the areas where they come from, we'd just be trapping them again and taking them back out of there even after they've been through the program. People have a low tolerance for the amount of cats that we have in the neighborhoods and stuff. So we have another area that we release them that's basically a rat-filled farm field with water and bridge nearby that they can get up under and stuff. So it's the best we can do with what we've got. We also, if somebody's looking for a barn cat, which we've had several people come looking for barn cats, we'll give you the cat so you have a barn cat, and we don't have an unadoptable cat in the shelter. So, but when we have, and it's really gone down since we started this program. I think we had 8 or 9 last year altogether, when the first year we had probably 25 or 30. So, and we've tried to release them back into the neighborhoods and talk to the people, and they're like, no, I don't want this cat pooping in my garden or tearing up my stuff. So hard to explain to people that don't want to educate themselves about it. So we do what we can with it. But like I said, it's really worked because we don't have near the amount of cats coming in that we used to. It's about half of what we used to have come in. So we have a low-cost spay-neuter clinic. We have 2 there in Dallas, TCAP and KCAP, which is now the spay-neuter network. And they're all the time running specials, $20 spays or neuters and stuff like that. So that's an awesome resource for us. And put out for sponsors, people, you know, if you can't donate or you can't adopt, you can't volunteer, donate. Donate for, help this animal get adopted. And people are receptive to that. iGive.com, anybody doing this? Go to iGive.com. And that'll walk you through the procedure. And then every time somebody goes and shops online, if you shop at stores that are sponsored by iGive, 2 or 3% of that sale can go back to your 501c3. So that's really worked out for us. You know, and especially at Christmas time, because then you start getting a bunch of, you know, a couple $100, but it's better than nothing. What's that? Yeah, Amazon Smile now does that. That's something new. I need to update this. This is really old. But Amazon.com partnerships, and I think that's where Smile is kind of going from what used to be Amazon partnerships. There's our vet tech students and Penny, and some awards they've won for doing the things that they do. Make them more adoptable. You got to vaccinate on intake. If you're dealing with a shelter, you got to vaccinate, because they come in with all kinds of stuff that you don't know, and it doesn't show up for 2 or 3 days, and then all of a sudden, well, now we've got a parvo dog in here. We've got kennel cough. That goes around our shelter really quick. So be sure you're vaccinating them. Get them fully vetted. We're fortunate right now to have a guy that donates about $1,000 a month to us after he found out what we were doing, just to keep us in spays and neuters. So that helps out a lot. Reduce your adoption fee. And I talked to Garland Animal Services the other day. Their fee is in their fee schedule. If you work for a city, or if you're talking to a city about reducing adoption fees, get it off their fee schedule. Our city ordinance says all I have to do is charge somebody something for an adoption. It doesn't say how much. But Garland says you'll charge $85. So that gives them no latitude to run a special or anything. So I can run nickel cat Fridays or whatever, you know, it's something just to get them moved. And we run specials anytime that we're overloaded with one particular situation, whether we've got a ton of black dogs or we've got a ton of cats or we've got just a ton of dogs, which is almost all the time. So rarely do we charge the $15 that is our normal adoption fee. But, you know, be creative, come up with some interesting photograph the animals, don't take pictures. Everybody's seen the ASPCA's sappy commercial with the Sarah McLachlan music, you know. The emotional blackmail is what I call it. But get you some pictures out in the sun with a dog or a cat being a dog and a cat. So dress them up, put some bandanas on, anything that will draw attention to them besides the barking and the, you know. And we have local obedience trainers that will come in and work with some of our hard case dogs that have obedience issues. She came in looking like that. She came out looking like that. We didn't know what the hell this was when it came in. We're like, what's she going to be, Doc? And the doc didn't even know. He's like, we'll give her some shots and see how it goes. And that's what she came out as. So she had sarcoptic. Everybody's taking pictures of their animals. Just be creative when you take them. Here's some of our happy tales, people that got their dogs. This young man right here begged us to let him adopt that, begged his mother to let him adopt that dog, and now they're best buddies. And there's some more at the adoption events. And pets in their new homes. You want that awe factor? Little kids like that, see, it worked, didn't it? This is what will happen if you adopt from us. And more emotional blackmail, but it works, use it. Our first year, 2011, we had 568 intakes, which was a big shock because the previous people that were running the shelter had apparently pencil whipped this deal. And I was expecting 1,300 animals, and I was about to have a stroke, but you know, fortunately, we didn't take that many in. That first year, we had 327 adoptions, which I was pretty pleased with, and 192 rescues, 47 reclaims, and we only euthanized 12 animals, and it was due to injury, illness, or just aggression issues that we just couldn't deal with. With a 97.5% live release rate. Our second year, the intakes really jumped. And the adoptions came up accordingly, but the rescues went down. And to the rescue people here, remember that y'all are what makes this possible and successful. When the rescues stop coming, that makes it hard for us. Just because we're no-kill and the animals are safe doesn't mean that we don't have animals that need to be pulled. And it's not just the cute and adorables, but when you have a big ugly that's been sitting in the shelter for 5 or 6 months and they're starting to go kennel crazy and you can't get a rescue to touch them, that's what hurts the shelter. And that's when you need to start, we have to start thinking about what's more humane for the dog, leaving this dog in the shelter for 1.5 years, or, you know, in the conditions that our shelter's in, it's really not healthy to leave an animal. So keep going to your no-kill. Don't punish the guys that are doing the right thing because the animals are starting to become safe. They still need your help. We still need your help. Our rescues have gone way down, and we still need that help from y'all. We got pretty good owner reclaims that year, and they had a 98.5% live release rate. We just celebrated our 4 years, and over 2,600 dogs have found their way to new homes or their existing owners. So that's a pretty good number, I think, for us. Make the impossible possible, and follow us, because I need more people to. Does anybody have any questions?